Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode
working on OpenShift
and sometimes we haven't.
This is so awesome.
Are an open culture that
It's actually
in
a big piece of the component for your GitOps work.
Everybody has something that they can take
On top of the Red Hat portfolio.
I give up on that. I almost had a person that I didn't. Whatever. We were so close. It was so close.
Almost amazing.
Almost amazing. But you know what? I'll take it. All right. Where are we? Good afternoon, GitOpsians. Apologies for the delay in the starting. There's not even a good excuse. We were just running our mouths at each other, and then we realized the time. That's us. This is who we are as people. I've been back from vacation, right? So the whole reason we were not on air 2 weeks ago, right, was I was on vacation. I went on vacation for 2 weeks. So I went on vacation for 2 weeks, and I felt like I was changing roles here at Red Hat. So folks who follow me on LinkedIn will have seen that I changed from what I was doing. I've now gone over to the SRE team for Arrow as a team lead, which is woo, yay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's really exciting. It's really fun. It's a really brand new space. With a really amazing set of people. So I'm super happy about the move. It's very exciting. But so that happened, and I had 2 weeks until I was going on vacation. So I transitioned everything to somebody else, and I don't even start my onboarding. By the time I got to my last 2 or 3 days before vacation, my brain had already left. Right, it exited the building.
Oh yeah.
And 2 weeks is the longest block vacation I've actually ever taken. I've never taken a 2-week vacation before. And so I've been back almost 2 weeks now, and I only just now feel like my brain is reemerged from vacation. So in body, I was on vacation 2 weeks. In mind, I don't even know.
Sometimes you need that though. I mean, there's times where I think I'd gone a year or so where I'd taken a decent amount of PTO, and when you come back, you just, it's good to just kind of reset, because you come back, you're in email jail, and you're like, I'm not doing that today. You just push it along, and I'm not doing that. All right, well, I guess I'm not doing that this week. And then it's good to go into the weekend and just kind of reset again and come back ready.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really nice for me too is the way it all aligned. It was a full clean transition off of my old role. So a really brand new, I basically started at Red Hat all over again. That is how new it all is. It's new access, new systems, new teams and ceremonies and meetings. And every day somebody remembers a meeting they forgot to invite you to. It's really starting completely, we just teleported back to November 2020 when I first started. That's where I'm at in so many ways.
That's awesome.
So the timing was great. On account though, I can't remember if there were any announcements I was supposed to do. I got none that are coming to mind, so I'm assuming we don't have announcements. I'm looking down to try and check my little notebook to see. No, I don't see anything. So yeah, I was just going to safely assume no announcements. Maybe not so safely. If Christian Hernandez wanders into the chat and reminds me about announcements I was supposed to do, then great. But I haven't heard from him this week, so probably not. His birthday's coming up, though. So we should all remember to reach out and wish him a happy birthday on August 14th, because I like to remind him that he's getting old.
Yeah, that's really soon. That's Monday.
Mm-hmm. As good friends do, right? So.
Do you know how old he's going to be?
It's a big one.
Well, what does it start with?
Yeah, it's a milestone. He's got a milestone this year. So I hope he never watches this and is just so confused when strangers start reaching out to him on Monday. I really hope.
Oh, that's awesome.
GitOpsians, you have your assignments. But anyway, so we were kind of coming back from brain vacation mode, and I was trying to figure what is our topic. since I am getting back into this space, and I've talked about it a few times, Kubernetes operators on the stream, I realized we've never really done just an episode on this. I think I've talked about doing an episode on it, but I've never really done an episode on Kubernetes operators. And if Christian did one, I couldn't find it in my brief scroll through the history. So we're doing it again. And so, yeah, when I first started at Red Hat, I was like super deep into all this stuff. Like, this was what I was working on and supporting and touching every single day. And then I basically went the last year like stagnating on it. And now I'm new role right back into these things again. And I'm like, oh man, there are so many things about these that I've sort of like just the knowledge stagnated. I kind of forgot. Basic functionality I still remembered, but like there's minutia, right? There's minutia.
Yeah.
Touched them a little bit because we did some demos of we've done demos of operators lots of times over the last year on the show. So it's not completely stale information. But as you get into more complex operators, they have a little bit more complexity. But the important thing about it is really that Kubernetes operators are GitOps. And I don't know that is always necessarily like extremely well known. And I actually went and looked in, I keep this at my desk because it's so handy, right? Christian's The Path to GitOps book. I was like, man, I bet Christian wrote about this and I can steal his exact words. And he did. So I can't.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I don't have to be smart myself. I just have to let him continue to be the smart one. I'm not going to read this entire excerpt, but you can get this book for free online through the Red Hat Developer Portal. It's published by Red Hat Developer. But so anyway, it's in chapter 3 about templating. And he even kind of points out like that's really not like, you're not going to really use operators to avoid duplicating YAML. But like this is still like the best fit because they don't not save you from duplicating YAML. And so I'm actually going to also use some slides that Christian and I have given talks about operators before, right? And so I'm actually going to pull up some slides that we did for the talk, and I don't want to put this into present mode because that will ruin my life. How is that? Can you see that okay?
Let me
a little bigger.
The chat over here. Yeah, maybe stretch it a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay,
here we go, right? So taking a step back from like what's operator, right? You have the concepts of like objects and controllers within Kubernetes. So you have like all of the Kubernetes kinds and then the things that control, right? So basically they're very declarative, and that's like kind of the guts of the Kubernetes. You've got some objects, you've got some controllers. So then we extended this whole concept of this with custom resource definitions, right? Or a lot of times it's just abbreviated to CRD. So you can have a custom resource, a CR, you can have a custom resource definition, right? Actually, this little thing right here, like beautifully illustrates the relationship there. So, the idea behind that is basically that you want to kind of create your own thing, but have the platform understand your thing. And that's where the custom resource definitions come in. That is like the laziest way I can put it, because I don't want to spend tons of time on the in-depth here.
Yeah, if I could, just one thing to keep in mind too, like when you're installing an operator, if you just go into OLM and OLM operator hub, whatever, and you deploy an operator, it doesn't actually deploy the end state, right? It deploys the extension of the API. Like the very first bullet point here is like, it's so key to all of this, because like, I think there's a lot of confusion if you're not familiar with how the operator deployment cycle works, where like, hey, I've deployed the operator, but I don't see the thing that I thought I was going to have. And it's because you still have to do the rest of the work, right? Like you still have to, create the instance of it, or use the CR, create the CR to extend that the CRD.
Yeah. Exactly. And so one of the fun thing about the Red Hat managed service operators is they actually do deploy the end state. And there's a ton of logic that goes into them doing that.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Like that is a whole thing. It's the whole thing. So I got really like used to those, which do the end state, and had that exact kind of, wait a minute, what did I forget to configure in this operator? In fact, you actually saw it on one of the, I think it was the external secrets operator. I had gone through and I was following the documentation. I was like, what am I missing? What did I not follow? And it was that in the other documentation, it was saying, okay, also remember to set this and then it will work. And then as soon as I found that it was, which was the operator hub version of the documentation, set it. And I didn't look at the operator hub version of the documentation. I just stuck with the main documentation. So also check both documentation sets, because a lot of things that are available as operators are also available. You just can install from a Helm chart or something like that as well. So make sure that you're checking appropriately. And so, right. So then the operator, you can configure your operator, and off you go. And so that basically the idea behind it is like you're encapsulating the human knowledge required to life cycle your application into the operator. So operators are continuously running. They have something called a reconcile loop, which like I'm going to do these things over X period of time, and I'm going to compare the actual state of these operands, which is the things an operator manages, with, I'm going to compare their desired state, expected state with their actual state. And if there is a difference, I'm going to make actual match desired. And so that's basically that there. So a lot of this gets done. And so I see the question, and I want to Alan, I see your question, and I will come to it. But I want to finish this part first, if that makes sense. Let's just finish the train of thought, and we'll come down to it, right? So now I have to reverse how I did this, because for Google Slides, you control minus get the things big, and now my other browser window is tiny.
And just to back up a little bit too, right? Like that last slide that you were showing, that's a good reason for, like, when you're thinking about like why an operator, right? Like generally it's like, oh, okay, well, I've got a Helm chart and I can manage the life cycle with that, but it's me that has to manage the life cycle. With an operator, that's all done for you, right? That's the idea behind it. So if you want something that's going to be deployed and updated and upgraded as you go along, and as your cluster grows, and as the application gets updated, then you want the operator, so that way it's all automated. There's nothing wrong with using the Helm way or the customized way, but just know that what you get with an operator is that automation.
You can actually also combine the things, right? So the presentation that I just showed a few slides out of, called Helm and Back Again, which is a talk that Christian and I have given several times. Well, Christian and I gave it like together once, and I've given it several times without him. And that's kind of the thing about, is if you want to start with Helm and then move to an operator, what does that look like? And then also kind of some strategies for combining. So you can have a Helm chart deploy an operator, or you can have an operator execute a Helm chart. And so the point is that you can still, the reason these the operators fit into GitOps is Git can still be the source of truth. So for example, with the external secrets operator, right? That is actually leveraging a reference. And so what's codified into the operator is a reference point, or the ability to go read a reference point, and then and then go get the thing that's referenced, right? That's actually what's there. So, and maybe this sort of answers your question, Alan, because I have like some follow-up questions for clarity. But basically what you can do is, if Git's still the source of truth, your operational knowledge can include, hey, go get this thing over here based off of like, XYZ thing. So it's either like, I've configured some information about secrets, and the secret I'm storing is actually a reference, and then I also know how to go get the value of that reference, right? So in the case of that particular operator's behavior, you can also tend to do things like some fine-tuning of like changing replica sets and so forth. Or sometimes you can even toggle certain features on in the configuration of the operator. So like auto scaling and so forth, like that could exist in some operators, and there's concepts of that within their configs, right? So basically, like so like kind of like talking about building operator, right? You have the operator engine, which is called the operator SDK. And an important thing to know about the operator SDK is under the hood, this is basically Ansible, right? This leverages Ansible under the hood, which is why the Ansible operators are exactly as fully featured as the Golang operators. And then you also have Helm operator, which is the idea of I can take my Helm charts and turn it into an operator. It will have, I'm looking for there's actually a chart about this. It will have slightly, like, it'll have a maxed out feature set, like compared to what a Go operator and Ansible operator can do, like in terms of the leveling. It will actually max out around levels, like it's like 2.5 level 3-ish operator. And I am trying to find, you know what, I have it over here. Sorry, we're going there. Now I have to change my Zoom again. I don't like the internet. But there, basically, that's as much as I can get it. That is like the operator SDK levels and the max functionality capabilities of each operator type or level type rather. And so like this is like cumulative, right? So like what level 1 does, what level 2 does. Level 2 is the new things plus level 1, right? So like level 5 is autopilot plus everything that came before. So you can see like Go will do it all. Ansible will do it all. Helm will get you about halfway. And I'm an SRE, so you know I don't like working with operators that are below a level 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want things doing stuff I can't observe or get alerted about. So
No, was Ansible? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say that's a whole other talk day, though. What's the question?
Has Ansible always been full featured?
Yes.
Okay, I was always under the impression that it wasn't like that it was closed, but it wasn't. You know, obviously you had like Helm as the lowest barrier to entry, and then Ansible, but Ansible didn't go all the way. So no, that's awesome.
Well, so I don't know if it's always, but in the nearly 3 years I've been at this company, yes.
Okay, that's good.
So we'll say as long as I have been aware of this, and I've updated this slide since I initially did this presentation, but I first did this presentation in 2021. Like
Okay.
spring of 2021 was the first time I gave this presentation. And so at that time, the Helm operators were squarely into level 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've continued to build out the functionality with that within the SDK, and also not present here. And I'm not really sure where it lives in its whole life cycle, but they're also doing a Java. They've been talking about doing a Java operator SDK.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really on a website, but I think I saw some GitHub repos for it a while ago. So, no, that's terrible. That was fine. I take it back. It looked great. Right. So that's sort of the overview and the history. When is it useful to create a meta operator? When you say meta operator, like, do you mean something like an operator for operators, or like meta operator is not a term I've heard, but I wonder if it's equivalent to other terms.
Yeah, that's if I understand that correctly. That's what we call a meta operator. You have a meta operator that you deploy, and then what it does is it essentially daisy chains the deployment of other operators. So
yeah, I hate that. So the Red Hat managed services, like ODF, they do that.
Yeah.
I hate that model. I hate that model a lot. But it's very common. One of the most like compelling examples for doing it is it allows you to deploy your application workloads and also your observability workloads at the same time. So and I'm probably like very unpopular with this. We call it umbrella operators sometimes, like the operator that controls the other operators.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably like in the minority here. I hate that. I think I would rather you mix Helm and operators and stuff together than do umbrella operators, because I've seen that go wrong so many times, like painfully wrong. Like hours and hours in front of the computer trying to fix a customer environment wrong. I just don't like it. People do it. I hate it.
Yeah, the big thing that I'm. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep doing that. Not bad.
We're both really excited about this topic. So like I'll say from my experience, right? So what you can do is if you have to deploy your workloads in multiple namespaces, right? That's what operators are good for. And that might include, both an application that has to span multiple namespaces, such as, Chrome has the 3-scale API thing, plus it also has Keycloak for identity and a few other things. So that's multiple namespaces. And namespace delineation is really helpful with kind of workload isolation as well. So like it's a good practice. You don't want to over delineate, you don't want to under delineate. And you also want to be, deploying or upgrading your alerting, your Prometheus and everything with all of that at the same time. So that it all happens just as one. That's when to do it. But be careful how many layers deep you go at, and be careful how many other operators you are working with. So can be things, because operators are cluster scoped, not namespace scoped. It can be pretty difficult to run multiple instances, sometimes impossible to run multiple instances of the same operator on a cluster. So watch out for that. Make sure that you're not going to be conflicting with that model. Be careful when multiple operators are using the same resource, because they can fight over it or if one of them is expecting something expecting it to be named in one certain way, it might change that. But then the other one's expecting it to be named maybe in a slightly different way, do typo or failure to, because it can't completely keep your code dry in that situation, right? You end up repeating YAMLs. You could end up failing to update the name understanding in the second operator on the same source, so that it might change its name back. So like we've had those types of things happening. You can get things flapping as they try and, I think this should have 3 replica sets, and I think this should have 4 replica sets, right? There's those types of things that can happen. So just watch it carefully and do your best.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I've seen the most of that is like when you try and delete something, right? Like just to your point a second ago about like the resource contention, if you and I are both working with an instance of Kafka, and I say, hey, I don't need that, and they're named the same, and the operator is like it's working in the same space, then I could accidentally remove your instance of Kafka. But the other thing is when you're trying to clear out the operator. So when you have that meta operator or the umbrella operator, and you do all of those installs, the cleanup of that it's atrocious, right? And so and almost virtually non-existent. So then what ends up happening is you end up having all these stale resources that are in your cluster, and when you try to redeploy through something like GitOps, you might run into an issue where it's like, hey, I've already got that thing there, even though you've already deleted everything else. So
there's some other things. So a few other real examples from the field is installs and upgrades use more resources than runtime. So this is, and what we see usually in the managed service space is people spend money on their clusters and then they use it like they're using all of the compute they're paying for, right? And I mean, I would too. That's expensive. So they're using their full quota. And so what ends up happening is sometimes then installations and upgrades can get stuck, even though technically there's enough resources available on the cluster for the runtime. So you can easily do is if something is already finished installing, you could actually scale its replica sets down to 0 to temporarily like release resources. But what happens is the operator will set it back. So when you have to do that, you need to change what the operator is expecting that to look like in terms of replica sets. But the umbrella operator will also maintain, because it's GitOps, right? So it will look at the operator definition for the secondary operators. And if their definitions don't match what it's expecting, it'll change them back. So you actually have to go all the way through the layers and change the first operator, like scale it down, just turn it off, scale it to 0 replicas on the operator, so that then you can start scaling down the other stuff by hand. And then that introduces what I always call, literally in this part of the presentation, I always call, this is an uncomfortable amount of room for human error. Because if you forget to turn something back on or forget to turn something back on in the correct way, your stuff's going to be foobar. So like I said, I hate it. And I hate it because I spent like a year and a half on call supporting it. And so I've also seen it go really, really well and completely like save us and like, yes, there's the operator doing its job. Everything's perfect. Because it's great for chicken and egg scenarios, because if something's not ready yet, the operator will go back and check again later. And then also operators never fail because it'll always retry forever. And sometimes you just want a failure, as it would have made everything a lot clearer, a lot faster if there could have just been a failure. So I don't like the meta operator, the umbrella operator, the operator for operator. Like, I don't like it. Double-edged sword. Just be careful with that one. You're getting cut. Know how you're going to get cut. Choose your technical debt wisely. That's right. What I always say. I would mix and match if you can. Highly opinionated answer there.
That's good though. It's perspective, right? And you're coming from a place of it's not like you're talking theory at this point, right? Like you're talking legitimate pain. Like you've been there, you got battle scars and scar tissue and all that. So yeah, it's coming from a real place. So that's good.
Yeah, been there, done that. Wrote the RCA, right?
That's right.
I think we can make some of our RCAs public because one, we do a really, really good job of being blameless in our RCAs at the knee. And I think I value that so much. It's so important to have that. And two, I mean, we've learned so many things that like people could read our RCAs and learn so much about how we accomplish things, how we handled hard problems, how we operated, as a team, and how we cleaned up after our messes. You know what I mean? Like, I wish we do that, but we don't. That falls under the probably don't open source this thing. And sometimes they have customer information, so you really can't ever put customer information there. But
yeah, when Reddit went down, was it like 3 or 4? I don't know when it was. A while ago this year, I think. Like they did one, and it was awesome because you got to see like that decision tree being made. Like, why did I go down this path for a while? And then I thought it was so awesome the way that they were completely legit and completely honest about it. Like, look, we thought it was going to be this way. It didn't work out, so we backtracked and we went this way. And like, and plus this guy built this thing 5 years ago, and then he rolled out, and it was good.
Yeah. I love a good RCA. That's amazing. That's really great reasoning. It's really great reading. I love reading through people's reasoning. Honestly, seeing what people do in a crisis is a great insight into human creativity. You'd be like, we tried this thing on a whim and it turned out it was right. Like, I just,
Yeah.
I love that because sometimes the errors they're telling you something is failing and that's not the thing that's failing. And that happens a lot. And that can especially happen with operators notice, but it can happen with any software.
Exactly.
So yeah, now I feel like a great time. Alan, you had said something, asked a question about what if you need variables. Did we already answer your question? Like, do you feel, or can you expand on that question more? I wish we could just pull people up and have them just talk at us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. That'd be nice. Like, have them call in,
Yeah. Oh, that would be cool. Like an old radio show. Or a modern podcast. Or a modern radio show.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that on our streaming host wish list.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be real cool. Right. I was going over the high level stuff and you were going to go over the demo. Are you ready to do that, or was there something I needed to show? I forget. I'm still on vacation mentally. I'm not even.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
I made this joke and somebody told me not to be so self-deprecating, but I was saying because I don't have all my access and everything set up yet for my new role. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just decorative. And he's like, don't be self-deprecating. You're not decorative. And I'm like, but a little bit. Okay. We actually have the clarity. So I was deploying app sets with Helm, but I needed to modify existing resources like EI server.
Yeah. So with that, normally that's I think where like customize is actually really good because you can patch it, but I don't know if it just depends on if that resource can be patched or not, or if it can accept a merge. Essentially, can that resource be changed once it exists, or do you have to do you have to blast it out and then recreate it?
Yeah. So that's kind of the rough things about operators, is because they're not constantly checking back to Git for the desired state. They're storing them. They're storing that within themselves. Not that I think that you could store a reference to a value and have the operator go get the value and then update that value in Git. I think this is actually something that Christian has demonstrated with certain tools that do this. But I'm like, I feel like, oh my God, I want to say Flux, and it's probably not Flux. But it was, yeah. You might this is very armchair coding, and again, like, part of the reason we're going into this right now is because my operator knowledge has gone about a year stale. But I believe that you could do it similar in mechanism to the way the external sequence operator does things, where you actually store a reference, and then the operator knows where to go get the value of the reference, and then so you update the reference on some sort of cycle, and that should allow you to not need an entire release of your operator. That's what I would try. I'm gonna asterisk that this is armchair coding, and let me know how it actually goes. But I think that's what I would do, is I would actually store these things as references that can be updated, and then the operator goes and checks the source of truth and does a comparison to the source of truth and and then updates based on whether or not you've made changes.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is you could just go thermonuclear and maybe use like a Kubernetes job to do it too.
Yep. Yep.
Brute force it.
You could do that. Brute force it. But yeah, so and then cert rotation and secret rotation, stuff like that, can all be done through that type of thing. Yeah, exactly. Vault's that's a great idea. Let me know how that goes. Let me know if I'm smart or if I'm an idiot, because I'm totally willing to be an idiot here.
Oh yeah, me too. I live and die by it.
I live and die by being asking stupid questions all the time. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then. Wake up, Bluetooth mouse. There we go.
All right, all right, let me start sharing mine.
I'm going to put the quick start we're following in the YouTube chat so people can follow along.
All right. Close that. Does that look okay, or?
It's small. Oh wait, no, that was terrible. Now I accidentally exited full screen on, or entered full screen on Restream here, and that's a terrible experience.
Let's see. All right, so yeah, so I just followed the prerequisites here. So what I'm gonna do is I'll walk through this part of it since I've already got it built out. I'm using a Mac, so Podman and Docker. There's no Podman to Docker or Docker to Podman brew package. At least, all right, should I do this right now? Search Docker. I tried to search. I googled it, but my Google poo actually kind of sucks. So power. Okay, good. So far, I'm still good. So essentially, what I'll do is I'll walk through just initializing the directory, and then when it comes to building the image and stuff like that, I'm just pushing it out to my Quay repo, and then I also have just a 3-node cluster. So nothing crazy. And if I do new project, and we'll just call it demo. All right. All right. So so basically what we're going to do is we're going to use the SDK. I went through the installation for the SDK. So on a Mac, it's brew install operator SDK. Everywhere, I mean, there's a package for it everywhere. You can pull it down from Git and do all the craziness if you want. But yeah, for me, it was super easy just using brew.
I actually got brew. I don't know if it still works, but I actually got brew running on Fedora 36. I'm on the 8 now though, so like I don't know if it still works, but it was working. Somebody who actually codes more regularly than I do should tell me if it still works.
That's
'Cause
awesome.
I'm getting back into that. I have to relearn Golang after a year of not touching it, and I took a course, finished a course on it, and I'm like, I think that helped. I really don't think that helps.
Did you go through like Udemy or something, or like LinkedIn Learning?
I used Codecademy. Theirs was pretty light, to be honest. But Codecademy, they used to be completely free, and that's actually so. I've told this a few times, right? I'm like I didn't go to college. I don't have a comp sci degree. I've never taken a computer science course. So Codecademy is like how I self-taught 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. But like I was, especially 10 years ago, I was using it for jQuery. So I kind of always go back to them because I know I like their sandbox interactive environments. But that particular course, it was more of a primer, I think, than like a full course compared to, and I don't think they would try to bill it differently compared to some of their other things. But the W3 schools, their free Golang interactive tutorial is actually really robust. I started going through that one.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even think about them.
I love W3 schools. W3 schools has been like my life-saving crutch my entire career. I don't actually know how to do things, but I know how to go to W3 schools and quickly figure it out based on their tutorials.
That's good. At least you know how to do that, right? Like I feel like I struggle until it finally clicks where I'm like, why is this not working? And then I'm like, I needed a curly brace.
Oh God, I hate that. One time I spent 4 years on a JavaScript stack, and then my first coding project back in Python, I was trying to figure out why my for loop wasn't working.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I got some peer review. I'm like, what did I do wrong? They're like, well, there's a line of JavaScript in here. I was like, shut up.
I'm sorry.
No, there's not. It's fine. Everything's fine.
All right. So what we're using the SDK here to create the Memcache API. So we're just creating a group called cache. The API version is going to be v1 alpha 1, and then the kind is going to be a memcache G. So that means when we want to create the instance of this operator, the kind would be memcache D. And so then once we've done that, we run this make docker build and docker push targets. And what this is essentially going to do is in my other directory, it's going to run podman build, and then it's going to run podman push. And then it's going to push the image to, and in this example, it's example.com/memcached, but it's really going to go to Quay.io or Key if you're one of those people. So what I'll do is I'll switch back here, and then I'll run, I don't even know how I did that. That's pretty awesome.
Did you accidentally 3-finger swipe on your trackpad?
I hit the command and back button, and it went back to my previous. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's awesome. All right, so I'll just run make docker build, and docker push, and I'm actually just going to control R this. All right, so again, it's just going to my repo, and I have this set up as both of these images are public. Otherwise, if it was in a private repo, you'd have to set, and we'll get into that with the SDK stuff, but essentially you'd have to push the certificates or the authentication mechanism into it so that way you can keep OLM updated. But yeah, just gonna run this really quick. I'll just change the tag here to version 2. And then it's gonna go and it's gonna build everything that's in the directory. So there's 2 targets within the make file. There's more than 2, but these 2 targets are make build and make push, right? So essentially it's just gonna do the podman build. And then once the build is complete, then it's gonna run podman push. If we want to use OLM, so that means that we want to go into Operator Hub, select Memcache D operator, and then click on it. We want the UI essentially. Then we would use the SDK to create OLM, and I've already got it installed, so it'll just barf on me. But next, what we got to do is we need to make the bundle image, and what that does is that creates a bundle with the Memcache D image in it, and or the operator contents in it, and it makes it available. So if I run let's see. And just so you guys know, make file. I set my image in here. So my image tag base is right here. So that way it doesn't get stupid because it was getting dumb earlier. So if I do make bundle build and bundle push, it's gonna build the bundle image, and then once that's done, it's going to push that image into the registry. And it's using another tag. And that's because I'm done.
Forgot to update it.
Yep. Boom. And now, looks like it's still doing 001. That is fun. Bundle.
Whatever. We're just going to ignore it.
Yeah, well, we'll ignore it. You're right. You're right.
We get
So
we get the theme.
Yeah. So if we look in Quay, we can see that I've got the Memcache operator, which is the first thing that got pushed. And then we have the operator bundle, which is what just got built and got pushed. And so then if we go back, the next thing that we need to do is run it. And so yeah. Because I don't think it updated to 002. Or this did, but maybe the bundle didn't. Anyways. And this takes a minute. It's pretty slow. So once we have this up, then we can create our Memcache resource. Or if we want to get crazy and just skip OLM altogether, we can just create the, we can just apply the manifest directly and go in. So that's another thing about operators, right? Like I think a lot of people, like a bunch of Red Hatters included, right? Where they think that if you have an operator, you have to use Operator Hub, you have to use the OLM, but you don't, right? It's Kubernetes manifest at the end of the day. And when you go through the tutorial here, like this is just a quick start. So this really just gets the Memcache resource available. Now, if you want to get like super crazy and you actually want to create like the manager, which is the reconciler that you were talking about earlier, then you can go through the rest of the tutorial, like the actual full blown tutorial, and then you can go insane and you can do all kinds of stuff. You can add Memcache instances, like your replica sets that you were talking about and stuff like that. All right, so if we do an OC get pods, we can see that we have the Memcache operator going. We have our operator bundle going. And now I can create a an instance of the Memcache custom resource. And because mommy config samples. Bam. And there we go.
I think you just click Memcache, right?
Yeah, I should have just.
There we go.
Yep. So we've got our group, we've got our domain, and we've got our API version. We've got our kind. And then this is just like a generic instance of Memcache. There's nothing in here. But like I said, if you wanted to go through the tutorial and add like more extensive things, I thought that this was going to take a lot longer to do. But when you already have everything installed, it works a little bit faster. So
yeah. Well, I would say so. Some general I have some general philosophies on operators. I actually know that certain people don't agree with me on these. But so actually I have Operator Hub open. So if I can take back the share, which I need to actually reshare because I stopped. There is a philosophy that I have that basically is that a good operator requires a good story, right? Because you're encoding human knowledge. So like the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your operations, that's what goes into an operator. So have a good story. So I don't actually always recommend people immediately just start out the gate with a concept of an operator. I think that you build towards the majority of it once you understand how your application will run and behave. But like when you're there, that's you know, that's the time. But I also, there are a lot of operators here in this operator hub thing, and so the best people to build an operator are the people who like write and maintain the application. So I don't really recommend building operators for like custom building operators for things you don't own, because you're not going to be able to guarantee like the consistency of operations with code that you're not maintaining yourself. So if you can get one from somebody else, there are a lot of them. Do that. And then stick with some best practices as well. So keeping in mind that this is GitOps, and so, you know, Git is a source of truth. Don't use floating tags. So like you'll notice when Johnny was doing his demo, right? He had the version like 0.0.1, right? He didn't do latest. Because what happens is if you just always have latest and then a new latest gets pushed to the registry, your operator is going to automatically bring that image down. And then you're going to potentially get an unintended upgrade that may or may not break things and can be really hard to debug. So if you are, for whatever reason, using going to make an operator for code that you don't yourself write and maintain, or your team doesn't write and maintain, or a sister team at the same company, like you see my point though, right? Make sure that you're doing it for something that will not accidentally give you heartburn later. Like that, you don't, those are very, very difficult incidents when there's a breaking change involved and there was a floating tag. Those are terrible, and there is no good way to revert. You have to roll out a new latest, or get whoever owns it to agree to roll out a new latest. Like you can't undo that once it is done. So don't use floating tags.
Yeah, the other thing too is like with the install plans in OpenShift, right? Like you can do it automatically, which is what you're talking about, and then you have the manual where you have to go in and at least approve it, right? If you have it as automatic, right, like it's awesome, because like when things go great, things are great, right? That's you were talking about it earlier. When it works, it works. You get the little operator fist bump. Everybody's excited. You know, it's the same thing with OpenShift when the automatic install plan is when everything's working great. But sometimes even Red Hat, right, we'll push out a break and change. But sometimes even on a community operator, like I have not to poo-poo on Grafana, but they pushed out a change where it updated the API, but it broke something. And so it literally, like, they pushed it out. They're like, hey, everything's good to go. Everybody's high-fiving. And then, yeah, downstream, everything was broken. And so, they'd go back and they'd worked on it to triage it. And getting a community operator back into the hub updated, it's not a point and click and you're done in 10 minute kind of thing. It takes time to get through the cycle. Yeah.
Somewhere in there is an operator that I worked on for a long time called deployment validation operator.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, getting that into the operator hub was an ordeal.
Yeah.
Getting updates into that is an ordeal. So definitely be careful about that. I have a similar story, a really good, like this is one of like my really early incidents here too. I don't remember which community operator it was. But basically, so what's happening is managed cluster, managed service, and we're getting alerts that the API server is like not meeting its responsive like targets, right? So we go take a look, we're trying to figure out what's going on. And OLM, remember how I said I don't like operators managing other operators? Okay. OLM is absolutely churning. It is using all of the CPU. Okay, keep in mind, so in OpenShift, right, you have a concept of like CPU per node, but it's not, unless you active CPU binding, it's actually just pooled. Mm-hmm. And CPU is not being used by one node, another node can use it, right? This is not true of memory, but it is true of CPU. So with what was happening is, so the node where OLM is running is at 300% of its like target CPU. That's how much it's using. It's using 300% CPU, right? And we're like, what is it doing? And so what happened a community operator had an install plan, and in the install plan, in the version that was actively installed, the field in it was immutable. And in the new install plan, the field was changed. So it not only no longer was immutable, but it was also different. So this could not, those changes from the one install plan to the other, that could not be applied. You had to delete the old install plan and download the new one, as opposed to update, because it's trying to do a patch, right? Supposed to update the install plan. And this was literally breaking the entire API server.
Wow.
Whole thing.
Wow. That's awesome.
S3 has to go in, and we figured out it's technically one of the customer's workloads, right? So like, very technically, my team isn't responsible for this, but we got like interface with the customer through customer experience. We're like, this is what it is. Do you want us to just do it? And they said, yes, please just do that. So we just did it for them while we were there. And we were like, okay, you need to go do this on your cluster though, because if all of your clusters are the same, they may already be some breaking, but like, here's your steps. We figured it out. But yeah, so like, that's why I'm kind of like, I don't like operators for operators. It's very painful. And I don't think you should write an operator for things that you don't own, because you're not going to be able to guarantee that things are going to go well for you with it. So, but people do it all the time. They write customized versions of operators of open source technology that meets their very particular cases, and they're extremely happy with it, and they think it's great. And I, honestly have never had to do it myself. So there could be some like really important, amazing context about why that's a wonderful way of working that I sing. I just personally would.
No, that makes total sense, right? Because there's also like the license constraints. Like, you might not be aware of like whatever open source if they are using an open source license, or if they do have a subscription or something like that, then you've kind of, all you've done is really just build like this thing that you have to still configure to go point to something else, right? Like there's really, I don't know, it just seems kind of pointless.
Yeah. So, but folks do it. And you know what? I would one of these days I would love to have somebody like sit me down and like tell me everything they gained by doing it. I don't, because even with Red Hat, when we offer community operators, we put software engineers and we get them into contributor roles at the very minimum on open source projects, right? We have somebody involved in the upstream for that reason, to secure our offering against problems. So
yeah.
And I think that's great, and I'd love to learn more about that. So if someday somebody who does those things or has done it in the past is watching this, ping me, tell me more.
That's where we got to get Daniel Messer on. He's on the operator framework side, and I watched a video he did it might have been a couple years ago. Holy crap! But he essentially wrote a Helm chart operator for CockroachDB, I think is what it was. And so like, that's a situation where it's like, okay, well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then just have him walk it through.
Put a pin on it. Let's ask him. Sometimes we always talk about interesting like potential side topics in these streams, and we never really follow up. And some of that is because it's not technically GitOpsy enough. We sometimes leave it, but I kind of don't want to stick to the entire like complete GitOps purism to this, because we're starting to run out of content around that, man. We've covered a lot. We've covered a lot on this stream about GitOps to date. So we gotta get a little bit. We gotta get creative. We gotta get a little creative, I think, at this point. I'm running out of ideas. On that note, if you have ideas and you want us to cover something on the stream, send me a message. What is it? There we go. That's my Twitter handle. I don't know. Is it still called Twitter?
I don't know what it's called now. There's a big X on it.
I don't.
I think it's still Twitter.
I'm kind of like, I literally only signed up for a social media platform because they asked me to promote this stream, and now it's a hot mess. And I would rather just use Blue Sky. And one of our amazing GitOpsians invited me to Blue Sky. So like big shout out for that. That's how I have a Blue Sky account. I do have Blue Sky. And yeah, I'll start posting things there. So you can also at me on that, but I don't remember what it is. But I'll put it on my Twitter so that people can migrate their following if they're on Blue Sky. Guys, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on the artist formerly known as Twitter. I don't know. You can send a carrier pigeon. If you have topic ideas or requests, let me know, and we will we'll do our best to get that featured on the show.
So a little fun fact, Andrew Sully enlightened me on this, and I just think it's the funniest thing ever. It's you know Mastodon, right? Like the where everybody, I'm done with Twitter, I'm going to Mastodon. So on Twitter it's called tweets. I don't know what it's called in Blue Skies, but on Mastodon they're called toots.
I had no idea.
The messages are called toots. It is amazing.
That is amazing.
I only want to use Mastodon now, so I can toot people.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny. I love that. It's exactly my brand of humor because it's like it's just like it's dumb, but when I say dumb, I mean like in a good way dumb. Like
yeah.
Oh, I like that so much. Sometimes I do that. I'll be like, I'll see something that I love, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so dumb. My best friend and I started doing that. I don't know. She and I have been friends since we were teenagers, so literally forever.
Mm-hmm.
We started doing that when we were young. We still do that every now and again. I'll say something's dumb, and people will be like, you don't like it? I'm like, oh no, sorry. That means I love it.
Yeah, it's actually really great.
Yeah. It's actually the best thing I've seen all day, but that's why it's dumb.
Yeah, my wife is like deep into like dad jokes. I mean, she's got like she loves dad jokes, and she's got some good ones, but she annoys me with them.
I
so
also love
that's why I'm
dad
on
jokes.
Facebook.
Can I compare notes with her?
Yeah, I will put you two together.
Yeah, I think we could be great friends.
I'll connect you two.
Yes. Okay, new material. I love it. All right. Well, we are beyond top of the hour. And at this point, we're not even being like useful people. So I guess we can go back to our day jobs. Also still no announcements. I don't remember anything. Christian never came on and told me what I forgot. We did our armchair coding for the day, so we accomplished things. Alan, appreciate you joining the stream and asking questions. I will remind you all, I already said it once this stream. I usually say it multiple times. Choose your technical debt wisely, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for what I yet do not know. And then hang on. I'm going to get this correct. I'm going to get the little fancy outro video. I'm going to do it. 3, 2, 1.